Good evening, fans. We are live with another edition of the Great North Wrestling Podcast. And I am very, very pleased to have with me this week the reigning, defending, undisputed Canadian heavyweight champion, Mr. Jeremy Prophet. Jeremy, I'm Jack Kilby. Thanks for joining us this week.
Well, thank you ever so much for having me on here, Jack. It's a pleasure to get to meet you, converse with you, talk to our wonderful fans who watch GNW, whether in Canada or anywhere in the world. And I'm looking forward to having a great time and getting to know you a little bit more.
Excellent. I wanted to start off first and foremost with some questions surrounding the amazing development that you're seeing in your career lately, and that was your successful winning of the Jacques Rougeau Academy and the work that you're going to be doing upcoming with the Nightmare Factory.
Yeah, I mean, it's a blessing to have been able to have come into contact with Jacques Rougeau, who is my trainer. He trained me back at the end of 2003, which seems like a lifetime ago. But then, eventually I left his school and went on to have a wrestling career. But we reconnected around, I think it was probably about a year ago. And he told me about this concept that he had called Wrestling Academy, where he wanted to take wrestlers from all over the country, have them compete, have it be by fan vote and by judges, and that the best ones would win prize money. And then, of course, the Nightmare Factory came along and offered a day at the school. Then they offered a week. And as it began getting bigger, they offered a month and then eventually a full 3-month scholarship. And that was, music to my ears, because I knew that's the place to be. Undoubtedly the best wrestling school in the world right now. If you want to be successful at the business, if you want to make money in professional wrestling, these are the guys who are going to teach you how to do it and make a pretty damn good wrestler out of you in the process. And so that was music to my ears. I want to make it big. I want to make my living doing this. I have high aspirations and ambitions. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to go into this and I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing, because, I don't need to have a carrot dangled in front of me to get up in the morning and go put in the work. So the motto there is do the work. I've been doing the work. So it's about being at the right place at the right time. And I think that a lot of this success that you talked about with me, it's good timing. It's when good timing meets proper preparation. And that's really what it's been. I knew in the competition that my skills are top of the line. I'm never arrogant. I'm confident in what I do. And I know that, you give me a level playing field, then, the cream will rise to the top. And so I really saw myself as being an odds-on favorite, and I delivered on that. Just doing the same thing I do anytime you see Jeremy Prophet advertised for an event. I give my 110%. I leave it all in the ring, blood, sweat, and tears, mind, body, and soul. So, it was a natural fit, and it's one that's definitely helped to catapult me to some truly tremendous opportunities, and ones that I'm going to make the most of, because it's not just a journey for me. This is for all of Canada. We don't have it easy here. Getting work visas, trying to get the same kind of exposure as the big American independents. We don't have that. So we got to fight, scratch, and claw for every bit of success that we get here. So I really want to be able to show that a kid from Canada who never gave up, who by the grace of God never got injured in over 17 years of doing this, can achieve his dream. And if I can do it, then it's going to inspire other people to be able to do the exact same thing. And that's my goal. And I'm going to make it or I'm going to die trying. But it takes a lot to kill me.
Excellent. Your style is quite renowned for its you're very fast paced yet hard hitting, acrobatic. You blend a lot of genres in your approach to the ring. I'm just wondering, considering doors are being opened with AEW and perhaps some of the other promotions in the United States, how do you feel your approach to working is going to mesh with some of the current roster in AEW right now?
I think regardless of if it's AEW or any other major company, I would fit them like a glove. I think that I have such an eclectic, diverse skill set that you put me in there with anybody and you're going to get the most out of it. I don't back away from any challenge. I'm supremely confident in my abilities. I've worked hard to be as good as I am, and I don't let anything go to my head. No matter if someone tells me, "Oh, you did good, you did excellent," or the most common one I get of, why are you not on TV? Why are you not signed to a major company? That doesn't get to my head. That doesn't make me say, okay, I'm cool where I'm at here. This is good. I'm on the right path. I got to take my foot off the gas. No, it's like I always say, I'm a guy that I want flawless victory. I don't just want to win 1-0 or 2-0. I want to win 10-0. I want to run up the score, run laps around people. To me, it's like, even when the big contract comes and the big money and the exposure, I got to still be that same person who is starving and hungry and, striving to get better. So for me, it's always constant improvement. And that's why I'm happy to get the opportunity to train at the Nightmare Factory, to add new skills, to fill in any holes in my game. Nobody is perfect, but I strive for perfection. So I want to be the best at everything. I want to be the Michael Jordan of professional wrestling, while also being like the Jackie Robinson of professional wrestling, like I always say.
You touched on earlier that you're a 17-year well-seasoned pro, and you were trained by Jacques Rougeau, who of course has trained a number of athletes, including Hannibal. I'm just curious as to your experience training with Jacques and how you feel that prepared you for your career.
Yeah, Jacques was a fantastic trainer. He always gave us the time of day. And, he was very meticulous about a lot of the, not necessarily the physical details, because in this day and age, when it comes to doing a headlock, when it comes to doing a body slam, it's pretty standard. It's pretty, homogenized throughout the industry. But Jacques always paid attention to details like the expression on one's face, the body language. You put a guy in a hold, for example. Some guys look like they're at the counter ordering a Big Mac at McDonald's, whereas, you got to be thinking about the littler things. What does my body look like? Am I flexing the right muscles? Is there the right look on my face to tell that story? Am I doing this with aggressive malice and vicious intent, or am I just doing this to kind of catch my breath and think of, what's coming next? So Jacques was very good at the little details. And I think that in this day and age in wrestling, you can take almost anybody off the street and teach them how to do a move. But there's a difference between doing a maneuver and actually doing something that's believable and connecting with the audience. Two people can do the same move, but it's those little details that will allow you to connect better with the audience. And so Jacques was very good at instilling that in a lot of us. And I'll be one of the first people to say that with me when I perform, I don't want people to be on their cell phones or talking to the person beside them. I want to create, almost like with these interviews, I want to create an environment of volatility, unpredictability, so that people stay engaged. Whether it be the person at the arena who pays their ticket to see it, or the person watching on TV that has the option to change to so many different channels. When Jeremy Prophet is on screen, I want you to know that something is going to happen and you're going to be entertained.
And when you were before you got into the industry and you were growing up, we all have sort of can point to a seminal moment when we saw something that made us a fan, or in another level, take it to get trained to become a wrestler yourself. I'm just curious what your early influences were. I read that you cited a match between Bret Hart and one of the Destruction Crew, or Beverly Brothers at the time, that sort of hypnotized you and set you down this path. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, that was the first time I ever saw professional wrestling. And one of the details I've never told about that story. So for example, that match would have been in 1993. That actually wasn't a match that I saw live. It just happened to be like an overrun on a VHS that someone had recorded. I think my older sister had recorded some programming, and that was overrun. Like, I was rewatching it, and the wrestling part of it, and that was the opening match, was the overrun. So yeah, it was Bret Hart and Blake Beverly, also known as Mike Enos. And that was the first time I ever saw wrestling. And it wasn't like I watched it and, I had to be on the fence as if this was something that I loved. I mean, I was hooked right away. I'd never seen anything like it. And yeah, I said, I want to do this. It was right from that moment. It wasn't I'm maybe going to try this, maybe going to try this. No, it's like my career was, I want to be a professional wrestler. These guys are doing it. These guys, it's their job. I want this to be my job.
And when you made I also read that you made the decision after high school to become a wrestler and start the training process. I'm curious, given the fact that you're a well tenured pro now, if you could characterize your experience working the indies when you started and some of those details as to how the business is for a stalwart independent wrestler now in 2022.
Well, I actually find that there are not many, of my generation that are doing this that aren't, beat up, banged up, bruised, been under the knife a couple of times, things getting replaced, all kind of a litany of injuries and sometimes bitterness to go along with it. Again, not everybody has the same path. So some people make it, some people don't. One of the things I'm fortunate of is that I've never been injured. I've never been hurt. I've never taken a break from wrestling. I've never wanted to take a break from wrestling, physically and mentally. Have all my faculties, never sustained a concussion or anything like that, and never wanted to. I never wanted to do anything other than wrestling. Like if I could do it 7 days a week, I'd want to do it 7 days a week. Unfortunately, we don't have that luxury here in Canada, but it is the thing that I'm most passionate about. And I think that one of the main differences between then and now is that, back then there weren't as many opportunities and visibility wasn't as much because now we have the internet. Now we have social media. Now you're able to get your body of work out of there. Like when I started, the internet obviously was around, but YouTube was kind of a developing thing. DVDs were more prominent, and people would, they were still like the archaic days of tape trading. They weren't actual tapes, but they were DVDs, and that's what would get a lot of exposure. So it's a lot easier now, especially with a channel like this, with hundreds of thousands of viewers, to be able to have people connect with you, connect with your story, and also see your body of work. Because even if you're seeing a DVD of a show, which is so outdated and archaic in 2022, but even if you're seeing a DVD of a show, you don't know the person behind the character, or you don't know the full story of the character. And that's really what people connect to, are the stories. Wrestling is great, don't get me wrong, but anyone can do a move. So there are more opportunities now for wrestlers to, call it what you will, get exposure, get over, connect with people than back then. I think that's what opens a lot of doors. I host a podcast. I love talking to people. I love getting the opportunity to pick wrestlers' brains under the guise of interviewing them. And I tell them all that. I say, it's amazing that we get to put out this piece of content, but at the same time, I also get to learn through hearing their experiences and add that to my repertoire. So there are just so many opportunities now, so many ways to get yourself out there and help to advance your career. And I think for the longest time, I kind of turned a blind eye to that. I was more about just doing the work from bell to bell, from the second you walk out the curtain to the second you walk back, putting all of my time and effort into that. But unfortunately, especially in Canada, you can do the greatest work, but you end up being like a tree falling in the forest with no one around to hear it. You need to have that following. You need to be able to connect with people on more than just a physical in-ring professional wrestling level. So I think that it's one of the best things about now is that social media is so prevalent in the world, and access to wrestling and all of the aspects that go into a performer are there for people to be able to make their decisions as to, if this person, like a Jeremy Prophet, is he as good as he says he is, or is he just, blowing smoke up your behind? Which, if you see my work, I mean, you can come to your own conclusions, but I never say anything I can't back up.
What would you consider your first bona fide break, be it in your first series of bookings, or was it later down the road when your character came together and the buzz happened and you started really catching on? Well, if there was a singular moment.
I mean, I can't really pinpoint it. It's wrestling. It's a domino effect. It's ideally at its best, the more you put in, the more you get out. So with me, I just wanted to wrestle and still want to wrestle as much as possible. Obviously, you get to a certain level where you have to make certain decisions based on the exposure that you get wrestling certain places versus others. The money, obviously, too, although I've never been overly concerned about the money, but you have two places offering you the same exposure. The one that's going to pay you better, sometimes that becomes the deciding factor. But for me, career advancement has always been the most important. So, I mean, it's hard to really pinpoint a big break. I've had opportunities to wrestle top level talents. I've had opportunities to wrestle rising stars, to wrestle established stars, to wrestle Hall of Famers. So it's really just a domino effect. And I think that that's just a product of consistent good work. And it's a thing that I try to do. You obviously can't please everybody. You can't please all the fans at a show. You can't please all the promoters that you work for. You can't be the champion everywhere. So when it comes down to it, it's just about putting out a consistent body of good work. And there are going to be hits and misses. But in my case, I feel there are far more hits than misses, far more promotions that have entrusted me with being a cornerstone of their company, with going out there, getting an ample amount of time to showcase my abilities. And I think that speaks for itself, just being able to be consistent and to deliver on what's expected of you.
I also had the pleasure of being ringside for a number of your matches, including last August in Kingston, where you really tore the house down with Speedball Mike Bailey. It was clearly the match of the night and one of my favorites. What struck me about your performance there, though, was the fact that you were so adept at cutting promo, and it seemed that you came out as a heel and cut a heel promo, and then after the match with Bailey, cut a babyface promo. At least that was my interpretation of it. And your mic skills were very significant. I wanted to ask you, where was that? Obviously, you're a very high level athlete and you train, etc. But that ability to talk that you touched on earlier and build character and build an emotional connection with the audience, that's something that especially it seems in the modern era, less and less individuals have, and you're certainly very strong with your promo skills. So I just wanted to ask you if that's something that you had to work really hard on, or were you always a great talker?
Well, I do feel I was always a great talker. I started wrestling when I was fresh out of high school, but I've been cutting promos ever since I first saw wrestling. So I guess I've had a lot of years to practice and put in that kind of work. Don't let anyone steer you wrong. When it comes to professional wrestling, promos are what sell tickets. Wrestling is great, but the promo, the ability to speak, connect with the fan, and get them to buy the ticket to see the match, that is the most important aspect. And so I want to be marketable. I want to be successful in this. So I work to fine tune all of my skills, and I don't get complacent. Complacency doesn't exist in my life. I want to work my promos as much as I want to work my wrestling, as much as I want to work on my body. I want to leave no stone unturned. And so that's why I know that this is an important part of the game. And if someone puts a microphone in front of you, or in an interview like this, asks you a question, you got to be able to come up with the right answer. You got to be quick-witted. And then when you do get the time to actually, workshop a promo, you got to be ready to deliver. You got to have that material and be able to hit that home run when you step up to the plate and the team is counting on you. That's how you become an asset in the business. So one of the things that really upset me, maybe upset's a strong word, but it did upset me that if you go and watch that match with Speedball Mike Bailey, which I do think is a fantastic match, one of my best matches with one of my best opponents and one of my best friends outside of the ring, my promos are not there. And so for whatever reason, they got left on the cutting room floor. And I think that especially my post-match promo, which was not supposed to happen, I was just, given an opportunity. I didn't know I was going to be interviewed after the match. And I just spoke from the heart. And I think it's unfortunate that footage never saw the light of day for whatever reason it might be. But that match was very special to me because this was our first match after a second COVID lockdown, which if you look at the restrictions we had to face here in Quebec, where both Bailey and I are from, it was harder than anywhere. And we're two guys looking to climb the mountain, looking to get signed by a major company. If you ask me, I'd say we were the two best in all of Canada. And we wanted to showcase that in that match. And I wanted to showcase it on the mic as well. So afterwards, I said, this is for all Canadians. I on my own show, I did an interview with Alicia Atut, and she said that my promo actually brought her to tears, which is funny because before the match, we had an interaction and she was very much upset with the things that I said, but then was able to, swing her and have her appreciate what I did and what we did to help Canadian wrestling and to help elevate it into some semblance of it. And I'm not going to, exaggerate and say we elevated it into an equal spotlight to the American scene, which is not the case, but, did our best to show that, hey, we have some exceptional talents here too, worthy of work visas, worthy of the opportunity to travel the world and fight the best there is in this sport that we love called professional wrestling. So, I was a little disappointed it got left on the cutting room floor and only the people that were there live got to see it. And it's something that hopefully, if the footage is still there, we can actually get it up there for the fans to see and to decide for themselves what they think of it and see how they feel.
Well, it certainly was a great promo, especially the post match, like you touched on. You've had a couple of tryouts with WWE, and I'm just curious as to your experience there and why you may feel that they didn't go ahead and move you into developmental or even the main roster, being, as you touched on, one of the Canadian athletes that are clearly TV ready with all the skill set.
It's surprising. I don't have that answer. I can only speculate. If you look at it, the camp that I went to FCW in 2009, tail end of 2009. They hired a Canadian. They hired Jinder Mahal, a good friend of mine. We were the last match to go on at that camp. So clearly on the last day, they were looking at the people they were considering for that contract. He did better than I did, for whatever metrics they measure that by. He was the choice. So clearly he did better. He was the better man on that day. And, they hired Tyler Breeze, if I'm not mistaken, who was at that camp. It recently was brought to my attention. He was at that same camp with us. They hired him at the subsequent camp. And so it really, wrestling, there's no rhyme or reason. It's not a 100-meter dash. The honky tonk man once said to me that, the sport for me would be track and field because it's cut and dry, no politics, the fastest man wins. Ironically, I also participated in track and field from high school into college. But no, I mean, wrestling, there's no rhyme or reason to why anyone can get hired. We've seen it time and time again. We're in a world now where you can be a super mega celebrity like Logan Paul and be headlining a WWE pay-per-view. So you asked me, why didn't they take me? I mean, I can only speculate, that Florida, when I was there, all the staff, Steve Kern, Dr. Tom Pritchard, Norman Smiley, Billy Kidman, from top to bottom, Dusty Rhodes, they all really liked me. They all told me great positive things. So what it comes down to is discussions behind closed doors that I'll never be privy to. And, that's what it is. It's really the story of Jeremy Prophet in that I've done these tryouts. I did a tryout with TNA, and Jeff Jarrett absolutely loved me. D'Lo Brown as well. And it was just a case of they didn't really have the, let's call it the stroke at the time, if we use a Jeff Jarrett reference, because Hogan and Bischoff did, and they didn't know me from Adam. So wrestling, it's this funny thing of timing, and you can be super talented, and I can travel the independents like I do and have tons of fans, marvel at my abilities. But, it's a tricky game, and it's political. We're in a day and age now where people who are just friends with the right people, maybe not the most talented, but, fun to have in a locker room, fun to have on a car ride, are the ones that will get spots. And so it's just the nature of the business, and things are always changing. So I can't really speculate as to what the reasons are with me. It's really just in the hands of the decision makers, but that's never stopped me. I've always taken every negative and every criticism or critique, and I've worked on that because I'm not scared of work. That's one thing that anyone who knows me will tell you. I'm not scared of hard work, and I can adapt pretty easily. And just look at my matches. You'll never see two Jeremy Prophet matches that look the same. It's something I'm proud of. It's I'm not one of these guys that you'll just see the same moves in the same order, and you've seen one match, you've seen them all. I can learn and I can improve and just keep becoming a better version of me. So while my career may not have reached the levels yet that I want it to be at, I don't mind being the tortoise to a lot of other hares, because you appreciate things a lot more when you have to work a little harder to get them. And like I said, I don't mind hard work.
Absolutely. And you use the term cornerstone to characterize yourself in terms of some promotions, and certainly with Great North Wrestling, that term really fits. In addition to being the Canadian champion, just wondering how you first connected with the promotion and got booked with the company and made the acquaintance of Devin Hannibal Nicholson.
Yeah, well, I first met Devin at an event for a company called CWA here in Montreal. I had heard of him. I know he trained with Jacques also, but I wasn't there at the same time he was there. I just kind of heard from a lot of the other guys, and he had some WWE TV matches. And so I knew who he was. Then we ended up on a show, CWA in Montreal. Spoke to him a little bit. I think he had mentioned that he was promoting some events. And I kind of kept tabs on a lot of events happening in Quebec and in Ontario, reaching out to some promoters that were putting on these events, wanting to work for them. What happened was he ran an event in St. Catharines, Ontario, and he had rented the ring from a friend of mine, Chris Thorne, a wrestler from Ontario, from the St. Catharines area. And Thorne needed some guys to work a match with. So I was one of those guys that he invited down to participate on the show. It was the first time I worked for Great North Wrestling, which at the time was known as Wrestling Super Show. And I again saw Devin and told him if he needed me for any of his other upcoming events, that I'd love to be a part of them. And then he had kept that in mind. And there was an event in, I believe it was Kingston. And that morning he sent me a message saying, hey, if you want to come down, find an opponent, there's a spot for you on that show. So I did that show. We had a great match. And then he was coming to Montreal. And I said, hey, I'm from Montreal. I'd love to be on that show that you're doing. And that show, he was scheduled to work with PCO. And for whatever reason, PCO couldn't do the match. And so he told me that the spot was available and then I could face him. So I said, sure, it's Montreal. I want to be on this show. Let's do it. I've never said no to an opportunity. And we went out. That was our first match in Montreal. We had a great match. Everyone was talking about it. And then I kind of just, got in his good graces and became a mainstay of Great North Wrestling. And they've given me a lot of great opportunities to work with Hall of Famers, to, be a champion, to have a lot of great matches and wrestle in a lot of places that I've only performed in these towns for Great North Wrestling, places like Petawawa, places like Rockland, Ontario, places like Napanee, Ontario, Brockville, Smiths Falls, a lot of places. And the only promotion I've ever worked for in those towns, and probably the only one that runs in some of those towns, is Great North Wrestling. So yeah, a lot of great opportunities came from that. Yeah.
And as a follow-up to that question, you've had so many memorable moments that are available for the fans to see on the Hannibal TV, including the time that you faced Coco Beware. And I know you touched on it in a couple of videos, but I didn't really get the full details as to what that experience was like. But I take it he was less than cooperative in the match.
No, in the match he was fine. This was the thing with Coco, and I've now just grown to go past it and whatnot. But with Coco, I mean, what happened was I was scheduled to work with him. I know Coco Beware is a legend. I have tremendous respect for him. It's just that with Coco, it seemed as though the plan was that I was scheduled to go over in the match. And Coco seemed to not like that. And he, made a bit of a scene in the dressing room. To me at the time, I mean, I was still only, a couple of years in the business. I didn't really take huge offense to it. And then, Abdullah the Butcher was there and he kind of saw what was happening. And then, he started telling me, Coco shouldn't be doing this. He shouldn't be acting this way. You're from Canada. You're from here. He's old now. He should be putting you over, and he shouldn't be saying he's a Hall of Famer. This is beneath him. I don't know this guy. And there was that kind of a thing. So, I mean, I wasn't super offended at the time because I didn't know any better. And then, there's someone like Abdullah in there who, he's a legend in his own right, all the subsequent things notwithstanding. He was telling me, you got to stand your ground. You got to, this guy shouldn't be acting this way. He shouldn't be talking this way about you. Have you spoken to him? I'm like, no, I briefly shook his hand, and now he's talking to the promoter, and it's getting a little loud and whatnot. But I didn't take it as he's like directly insulting me, even though it was presented to me that way. But afterwards, we started putting the match together, and there were a few awkward things. Like I was telling him, hey, these are some of the things that I do, and it was like he was under the impression I was going to be very rough with him, because he said, hey, brother, whoa, you don't feel me out there. And I'm like, well, it's okay. You're not going to feel me either. I know what I'm doing in there. I'm not here to hurt you. That wouldn't give me anything. And we went out there, and it's funny because I look back on the match, and to me, one of the funnier things about it is that we're in a boxing ring. And for those of you who don't know, like, a boxing ring is really, really stiff. It's not like a wrestling ring. There's no give. There's a reason when boxers get hit and you see them hit their head on the mat, that they're done. And I look back on that match, and I'm like, man, I'm giving him no quarter in there. Like, I'm clotheslining him, and I'm hitting him, and he's taking bumps that are, you could tell he probably didn't want to bump. And realistically, if we did those matches now, I would avoid bumping him altogether because of his age and whatnot. But he never complained. He never told me to stop or to slow down or anything like that. And all in all, I feel it's actually a pretty decent match. The only thing that's awkward about it is we had this spot where I go for a moonsault, and I've told this story many times. We have this spot where I go for a moonsault just because, I like the challenge of it's a boxing ring. Certain wrestlers, legends, Hall of Famers, I won't out anybody, but were of the impression that if they even so much as take a knee in that ring, they may injure themselves. So I wanted to give the people their money's worth. It's something that's near and dear to my heart, is that, I'm still that little kid that saves up his Christmas money to go watch, WWE events at the Bell Center here in Montreal. So if I'm on the marquee, I don't ever want somebody to say, hey, we went to see Jeremy Prophet, and he just, he didn't give us the kind of show we expected. So I said, you know what, screw it. Even though it's a boxing ring, I'm going to get up to that top rope. I'm going to do a moonsault. I'm going to do something that people will remember. And it'll be even more impactful because nobody would expect me to do that, given that this is a, for lack of a better term, stiff-ass boxing ring. So I told him what was going to happen, and all he had to do was just move out of the way. I go to do it, and for whatever reason, Coco just stayed there. And to this day, I don't know why. Like, I may go to my grave not knowing, unless I see him again and we talk about it, and if he remembers, but not knowing why he didn't move and why I landed right on him with that moonsault that I really feel he didn't want to take, unless he suddenly just decided, okay, I'm going to take it, or he maybe just forgot. So, that was the thing that was really awkward about that match. We also had a hell of a promo, though, before the match. It's one of the promos. I like when people kind of, bring it to me in promos. And so I really went after him pretty hard in the promo. And then, he kind of came back at me. I went back at him. That part was fun. But to me, like, when I think of that match, I'm like, if I could do it over again, like, I probably wouldn't have bumped him as much as I did. But, no complaints. He shook my hand afterwards. We shook hands. It was all good. And, Coco is someone who he's had a great career. He's a good ambassador to black wrestlers out there like myself. And so I've really softened on the whole thing, looking back at it now, that it's like, he might have been having a bad day. He, might have had a rough flight. There's a lot of things that go into it. Like, do I care that he didn't want to put me over? Maybe he shouldn't have put me over. It's one of those things where you're a young guy in the business. You got one legend, kind of calling you a piece of trash. That's not that he actually said that, but you get that impression. You got another guy who's legend in the business telling you, hey, you can't be letting this guy talk to you. You're very influenceable at that point in your career. So I think a lot of that played into it and played into the animosity that I held for a long time. But like, if I saw Coco today, I'd go up to him, I'd talk to him. There's no bad blood or anything like that. In fact, there's a lot of love. Doesn't make Excellent. For as salacious of a story, but that's how I feel today.
No, I just remember seeing the match years ago, and that moonsault is something that really stood out in my mind. Very impressive. You've had a number of really great moments in Great North Wrestling. If you could dilute it down to one or two, what would those be? And not necessarily matches, but angles, promos, a program. What would that be for you?
One of my first great memories was the promo leading up to my Montreal match with Hannibal, where we did a fight on a rooftop. And it's such a shame that this is like right before the advent of high definition video, because it's still out there, but the quality is not the greatest. Like, it doesn't stand up to today's video quality standards. But we have a great fight on the rooftop there, and we don't have a big budget to put that together. So I think it came out great for what it was. So real that the neighbors called the police, and 4 cop cars showed up. And cops came right up to the building. They thought it was an attempted murder, and we had to show them the video to show them that, like, no, this is just a promo for wrestling. So that was a good memory. In fact, a lot of the memories are just those things that we did outside the ring. We did a press conference with Terry Funk. And to this day, people will message me and they'll say, that press conference, which I always like to joke about. I think that at one point the video was at like almost over 100,000 views. And I'm like, a good 20, 30,000 of that is probably just me. It's one of those things where I love watching it. I show it to people. I love seeing people's reactions to it. I clicked that video so many times, and I'm just a bit part player in there. Like, I'm not, overly involved in it, but I was there. And so many people to this day believe that that was entirely real. They believe it was a real fight. And I think it's a good example of, realism and how you got to make the people believe. That's what wrestling is. And I think that sometimes we push the envelope probably a little too far in Great North Wrestling, but we wanted to give people the real pro wrestling experience. We wanted people to hate the bad guys. We wanted people to be happy when the good guys beat up on the bad guys. And we wanted to create things that seemed real. A lot of people will say, oh, you guys went too far. You shouldn't have been fighting at a press conference like that. You shouldn't have been fighting in a department store, which was another one that we did. But we did a lot of these because we wanted to make people see something that could potentially be real. And I mean, like, we did the department store fight, and I think we made the front page of the local paper. And that was able to generate more ticket sales. People wanted to see how that went. We made the 6 o'clock news in Thunder Bay when the Terry Funk press conference happened. So, it's not really much different than what ECW was doing back in the day. Just it was in a different era. But, realism was the main thing that we were going for. And it was, I guess, at certain points, maybe too real for people. But at the same time, that's the pro wrestling experience. No one wants to go to a pro wrestling show and have people say, okay, well, here are the magic tricks and here's how you do them. And that's what this was our form of magic. This was us being able to make people believe, which I think that's at the core of what professional wrestling is. People go there wanting to believe. We made them believe. Yeah, we pissed off a lot of people in the process, but we always gave the fans the real pro wrestling experience with villains they could hate, heroes they could cheer for, and segments where people had to have that doubt as to what is real and what isn't. And I'm very happy with a lot of those moments. And then there's the in-ring moments. I mean, I got to wrestle tons of great talent. I got through a wide variety of matches. I've actually had more, believe it or not, I've had more stipulation matches in Great North Wrestling than in any other promotion, from ladder matches, TLC matches, table matches, with a wide variety of competitors, street fights, all these different kinds of things. And so it's always good to get to test your skills in those kinds of things when it's not just a standard wrestling match. So yeah, a lot of great memories. It'd be very hard to pinpoint one specific match. It could be my match with Speedball Mike Bailey. It could be my tables match that I did with Hannibal or with Commander Rick Sniper. It could be I did a tables match with Sexy Eddie. That was a lot of fun too. I did tag matches with Sexy Eddie against a wide variety of opponents. And then there's, the legends. I got to face Hacksaw Jim Duggan. I got to face Brutus the Barber Beefcake. I got to face Lanny Poffo on a ton of occasions. A lot of these people that I grew up watching and then got to learn by getting in the ring with them and testing my skills against them and putting on a great show for the fans. So there's a ton of great memories, a lot of great history. And that's just the in ring. I mean, that's what I love most. Like when people ask me, what's your favorite part of professional wrestling? And they'll start to name everything that isn't pro wrestling. They'll say, is it, the road trips? Is it hanging out with the guys after the show? And I always tell them, no, it's the wrestling. That's my favorite part. Bell to bell. That's my favorite part of professional wrestling. But I can't discount that, outside of the ring, I mean, we got to travel to a lot of places. Like I went to New Brunswick for the first time in professional wrestling because of GNW. I went to Thunder Bay, Ontario. Got to wrestle Scott Steiner in Thunder Bay. Awesome match. And I'm a huge fan of Scott Steiner. First saw him when I was but a wee lad at the Montreal Forum, wrestling the Quebecers. And so, getting to share that same ring with someone that was on the first 2 live events I ever went to go watch, that was amazing. And I got to do 3 matches with Scott Steiner and learn from him and, just mesh our styles together and go out there and give the people a great show. So, like, again, it's so hard to just pick one memory. And who knows, there might even be more to come. So as the old saying goes, the best is probably yet to come.
Well, that's an excellent segue into my next question. As you're aware, you were booked in the main event for our card in Petawawa that unfortunately was unable to happen. But Great North Wrestling is restarting in 2013, and you have some unfinished business with the Blood Hunter. You were booked for a ladder match, and I guess it was for the Great North Wrestling strap. And I'm curious as to whether that is a match that you're anticipating in the future, and how you would deal with that ultra violent style of the Blood Hunter.
Yeah, it's not my preferred style to deal with. My answer is always the same when it comes to that it's not my preferred style to deal with. And as a champion, you got to do what's asked of you. So that's really what it comes down to. Do I want it? I mean, I value my health and well-being. And I know that would be a match that would definitely take years off of my career. Blood Hunter, no joke. There's a reason, tons of people are deathly afraid to face him. I was probably the only one willing to sign on the dotted line for that one. But, truth be told, I enjoy having all my limbs, all my faculties intact. And, I mean, in a lot of ways, I feel I probably dodged a bullet with that one. He's no joke. And so, if as a champion, you got to defend your championship. That's what it comes down to for me. But aside from being a good employee of the company, I'd rather not risk my life.
Well, it's definitely a match that the fans were, and I believe are, looking forward to. So hopefully we'll be able to.
If the fans want it, the fans want it. You got to give the people. You got to give the people what they want. They're the ones paying money. But I definitely have to put in, extra hours of training and, maybe take some additional martial arts and self-defense because, like I said, he's no joke. And when it comes down to it, there's a reason why there's a lot of people who aren't lining up to do that. And a lot of people pulled out of that fight. And I was the only one that was willing to sign on the dotted line. So not my preferred choice. But as a champion, if you really want to represent a championship, hey, you gotta take on all comers. And I'm one of the only guys who's not back down, maybe to my detriment, not back down from any challenge. So, it comes down to what the matchmakers want and how much, how much the prize money is, how much the people want to see it. So, yeah, that's what champions do.
Well, I can almost guarantee that the fans are going to be clamoring for that match next year. So we'll see what happens there. You also have experience promoting, mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if you can share your insights as to how. I mean, you touched on it a bit earlier, how unique the Canadian milieu is based on our geography and other factors, but how would you say that experience has been for you overall, and are there any challenges or insights that you can offer to independent promotions that are moving forward in the modern era?
So it's a pretty big misconception myself as a promoter, because I didn't start out ever wanting to promote. I fell into promoting because there were companies that were near and dear to my heart that I was performing for that fell into financial trouble. And so to alleviate that, I purchased those companies to, help out a couple friends of mine. So that's how I came to acquire companies like CRW, companies like MWF. It's that they were in financial trouble. I don't want to say financial ruin and embellish it, but they were promoters that wanted out. So when it comes down to it, I stumbled into promoting, and I learned along the way. And it's not easy. It's stressful. It's not easy. But some of the best things in life aren't easy. So I enjoyed the challenge of it. I enjoyed being able to put out a show that could help to elevate people, help to advance their careers, and help to give the fans a good show. Because had I not stepped in with a lot of those companies, they would have just fizzled away. They wouldn't exist anymore. And I couldn't let that happen. I had too much of a connection to the fan base to just let that happen when I had an opportunity. And yeah, I may have lost some money initially in order to do it, but I had to make sure that those people were still getting their wrestling and at least give it a shot. I've since managed to sell off those companies. I actually just completed a sale not too long ago with regards to a lot of the materials associated with one of them. And so I've kind of gotten out of the promoting business. I don't think it was for me, but it was an interesting experience. And I think that being a promoter, and this is probably going to sound as boring as paint drying for people watching. So I'll get off the subject pretty soon. But I think it's good because it gave me the other perspective. It helped me to understand what promoters want, because I was more looking at it just from the wrestler side of things. But now seeing the way the talent was, dealing with the talent, dealing with sponsors, dealing with fans, it's totally different as a promoter. So as a wrestler, it helped me to understand the shoes that the promoter is in, help me to understand what they are looking for and what really helps, because sometimes it takes more than just doing a good match. Sometimes having somebody who is a dedicated locker room leader, someone who's reliable as much out of the ring, is as much of an asset, and sometimes more than somebody who they can get it done bell to bell, but then it's pack up your things and gone, and that's all you get from them. So it helped me understand a lot of those behind the scenes details that really you can only understand being a promoter.
You also have a podcast and have interviewed a number of high profile personalities in the business. Do you have any memorable interviews or interviews that you thought were going to go one way and then went another? Or what has your experience been in that domain?
Yeah, no, I've had great interviews. For me, a lot of it is just reconnecting with people I've met in the business, but never had the chance to talk to at length. I remember when I first started with Jofo, and like we were talking about off air, I've been in the podcast game since way back. I've been in the podcast game since, let's say, 2010 or so. Been broadcasting on TSN radio. And we also had a podcast as well, podcast version of the same one that was on AM radio. And so I'm a bit of I don't want to say a pioneer, but I was pretty early to market with podcasts that are now huge in the wrestling space. But yeah, no, it's really just having conversations and getting to the truth. Some of my favorite interviews are with controversial people. I did one not too long ago with Bill DeMott, and he's someone that has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to professional wrestling. But is someone that was a bit of a hot topic that people were shying away from. And to me, it's like, well, if you can watch, and I might be totally wrong here, and the internet and the comments will eat me alive, but if someone like a Barbara Walters can go and interview a Charles Manson, which I don't know if she actually interviewed Charles Manson, but I'm just creating a scenario here. I can definitely interview people that are controversial and at least give them an opportunity to put their side of the story out there. So I like that. And I think that that's true journalism. True journalism is not going and crucifying someone based on one side of the story. I've never jumped to a conclusion based on one side of the story. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't put their sides of the story out there. I, for the longest time, was a person that I never wanted to come across in any way being defensive and whatnot, because if I know the truth and the truth favors me, then anyone who's going to believe anything that's not the truth is not somebody that, I need in my good graces, or that I need to fight for their friendship or their admiration. But unfortunately, when you don't put your side of the truth out there, then the only truth is the side that is. And that's an unfortunate thing. So that's why I like that with my podcast. I'm not scared to ask the hard hitting questions. I'm not scared to express myself. I know I'm not everybody's cup of tea. There are probably people watching right now saying, oh, this guy's full of himself. This guy, talks a lot, whatever it might be. And that's fine. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but I speak my mind. And, I believe in true journalism. And true journalism is getting both sides of the story, getting that out there, and letting people be able to decide with all of the information at their beck and call. So that's one of the things I love about podcasting. And I've been fortunate. I've had a lot of guests on. I've had my good friend, TJ Wilson, Tyson Kidd. He was one of the first ones that I reached out to and said, man, I'd just love to interview you. And, he agreed to do it right away. We interviewed The Godfather, who's someone that, I text on a regular basis now, and was going to go out to see him, spend time with him when I was out in Las Vegas not too long ago. We have that kind of a good friendship and mentorship. Just a lot of great people. We interviewed Devon Dudley, which is another great one that we did on Joe Foe in the Ring, and even rising stars like my man Shane Taylor of Shane Taylor Promotions. Can't say enough good about him. Just hustling and grinding, doing a lot of good business. I like that we have a balance of up and coming stars. We have established stars. We have legends across all eras. And one of the things that I'm very proud of is that we've helped to shed light on the issues that Canadians face. So we've had great Canadians like Lance Storm, TJ Wilson, who I mentioned earlier, Santino Marella, a lot of people who have dealt with the issues that we deal with that, so many people think are fictional. I had a WWE legend, I won't say who it is, but say to me, I've been hearing what you've been saying, and this whole thing about Canadians and what you have to go through. Look, man, a wrestler's a wrestler. If someone's good, they'll find out about it. And it's like, well, that's not the case. There are a lot of wrestlers who wrestled only in Canada because we can't legally go wrestle in the United States, wrestle only in Canada, and their careers flounder because we don't have the same kind of attention here. It's not like in the United States where you do well, you get a bit of a buzz, and then the big companies come calling, or you get to perform and rub shoulders with decision makers on a weekly basis, or at least people that can be good scouts and get that information back to them. So they don't realize it. It's like you can't really relate to something unless you've lived it, unless you've been around it. It'd be as ludicrous as white people back in the day going and saying they could relate to what a slave is going through. It's like, okay, you may see it, you may have your tertiary outside perspective, but slavery was a thing for a long time because there were people who were just saying, well, this is not an issue, this is not a thing, this is okay. But if you actually go and you take a look at what these people were going through, it wasn't right, and it took people speaking up about it. If I were to use a modern example, I would say, like, even in wrestling with the speaking out movement, it took people speaking up about this for people to actually take notice of it and say, look, there are a lot of people in the wrestling business that are using their positions to abuse other people. So I think it's imperative with a lot of these issues that people speak up about it. And to anyone who would say that speaking up is not going to do anything to help the situation in Canada or any situation in wrestling, I say that's a lot of BS, because people need to talk about these things, bring it into the light so that it can be exposed. Otherwise, it goes unnoticed. And that's been my crusade for Canada, to be able to put us on an equal playing field, to say that, we should be getting scouted just by working in our own country. The protocol should not be go work illegally in the bigger markets so that we can hire you to work legally. That's backwards. And nobody is going to change my mind about it, that the protocol should be that way, or that it is that way because it's just that way. And that's the path that people should follow. I'm working to change that path. And I'm going to make sure that happens. And if not, well, I'm going to keep talking about it.
My final question, it's actually a two-parter for tonight, is what would you say is your penultimate career goal, be it in the ring, business wise, in the industry in some capacity? And what do you see as being next for you in terms of your career progression in 2023?
Okay. So the second one is a little bit easier to answer. Um, the immediate goal is to get signed to a major company. A lot of opportunities coming up, and I want to make the most of it. I'm not just somebody who's along for the ride. I'm really thinking about the long term, about the future. I'm hungry for that success and absolutely want to obliterate any obstacle that stands in my way to achieving that, wanting to put in as much work as possible to make that happen by any means necessary. I'm aggressive about it. And I'm assertive about it. That I know where my skills lie in professional wrestling. Unfortunately, when you don't get to showcase those skills against people that people view as being the upper echelon, you don't really get appraised fairly. Like for me, hell, it doesn't even have to be a contract with a major company. If I could get my hands on an American work visa, I would gladly earn my keep. I would even go as far as to say, if I could just spend my own money and get one, and work the American independence and show that I'm as good as I am, and take a lot of those guys who are perceived as being better than me and showing that things might just be the other way around, I would do that. I would even sign a conditional one where if a major company would want to take a chance on me, but for whatever reason I fall below their expectations, I would pay for it myself. It's really not a money issue. It's that we need to have one of those major companies that can open the door for us. So that's the short-term goal. And when it comes to the long term, my long-term goal is quite simple in that I want to be the first Black Canadian world champion. I think it's long overdue. I think the history of Black wrestlers in Canada is unfortunately rather lackluster, and I want to change that. There's no reason why Jeremy Prophet should be, at this point in my career, a top 5 Black wrestler in Canadian history. That shouldn't be. There really should be more. So representation is very important. I want people that look like me to be able to see someone like me achieve success on a worldwide stage, to become a world champion, to inspire them to do the same. Growing up in Canada, I couldn't go to a local show and see someone that looked like me. So I want to change that. I want to change it for the better. And I want to help people along the way. I want to show people that you don't have to do things the American way. You can do things the Canadian way. Work legally in your country. Don't risk going and getting a multi-year ban or going to prison just because you're trying to do things the American way, just because you're going to work illegally because a bunch of people have told you that that's the only way to do it. I want to blaze my own trail and show people that the problem is not us. The problem is the scouting, and they should be scouting us here. You can do it in your own country and be successful and make it to the top. And that, I believe, is going to be my legacy. I'm living as the main character, the main protagonist in this story, and I want to see this story through to its very end with a happy ending, and one that can inspire a generation of people just like me.
Well, Jeremy, it's been a great interview. Do you have anything you want to promote, and where can the fans find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at Jeremy Prophet. That's JeremyProphet. You can find me on Instagram. My fan page is The Real Jeremy Prophet. I don't run that page. That's my social media team. But you can, pretty much follow everything that I'll put on Twitter or on other platforms on there. And you can see me on Jofo in the Ring. You can go on YouTube, look for Jofo. That's Jofo in the Ring, and you'll see tons of episodes of our show. And you'll find it very entertaining. You can also use the hashtag Jeremy Prophet on YouTube, and you'll be able to see tons of great matches on there and a lot of great content.
And to do a little run-in here, Jeremy, I'm sorry I was out for a run. I missed the first part, but what are the chances we're going to see you having an AEW match when they come to Toronto in a couple of weeks?
Well, I'm going to be there. That was part of Winning Wrestling Academy with Jacques Rougeau. So, the rest is up to them. I'll be there. I'll have my gear. And hopefully the stars align and the people will be in for the Jeremy Prophet experience in Toronto.
So you're going to be there for both the Dynamite and Rampage tapings?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Which they're doing it separate from what I understand. Usually they tape them all at one night, but because it's a fresh market, there's actually going to be a Wednesday taping and a Friday taping. So 2 chances. So I wish you luck on that, and congratulations on winning Jacques Rougeau's show.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah, I'm going to make sure that I do you guys proud.
Well, thanks again, Jeremy, very much. I appreciate your time, and best of luck with the endeavors you have going on. I know a lot of fans are very interested in your career, and wishing you nothing but success.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys having me on. Let me know whenever you want me back on, and it'll be my pleasure to do it.
Thank you for
again.
watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews,